Good morning. Whoa. That's really loud. Sorry. I'll stay a little bit back from the microphone. So yeah, I'm Martin Heng. I work for Lonely Planet, and today I'm going to share with you some of my tips for traveling with a disability. Some of these are from personal experience, and some of them are kind of general common knowledge in the kind of accessible or inclusive travel world. So there's no need to write this down. I believe this presentation will be available after for download. So my contact details are there. At the bottom also is my blog from when I went around the world in my wheelchair at the end of 2014. So the first tip is, of course, plan ahead and plan well. First, decide what kind of a holiday you want. What are your goals? Do you want to relax by the beach? Do you want to go sightseeing? Do you want to go a road trip? Do you want to go camping? Just like any other holiday maker, knowing exactly what you want to get out of your holiday will make it easier to achieve. So ask your friends and family for personal recommendations and suggestions. Obviously, first-hand knowledge on the ground is the best if you can get hold of it. But also remember, even within the SCI community, everybody's needs and abilities are different. So only you know what you can and can't do. It's all very well to kind of find out whether you've got an accessible hotel room, and that's essential. That's to know you can go to the toilet, or you can bathe, and you can go to sleep. However, that's not the only requirement. What about transport? Are the tourist attractions themselves accessible? What about the bars and restaurants? And remember, the less developed a country is, the more likely it is that these are not accessible. It's not just about hotel rooms. Travel agents are experts and have good relationships with suppliers. If your needs are high, you may want to book everything through a travel agent such as Peter's. If your needs are less complicated, then I would say it's still a very good idea to book your flights through a travel agent. They will have good relationships with airlines. They will also make sure that they ask the right questions to make sure your needs will be met and that your mobility equipment can be accommodated, especially if you're traveling with a power wheelchair. You can also discuss with travel agents what your requirements are. For example, do you want to avoid the hassle of having a lot of connecting flights? Would you rather have one direct flight, or would you rather avoid having a long sit on the plane and have a direct flight? If you are going to have a connecting flight, really it's important to make sure that you've got enough time between transfers. So an hour or 90 minutes is probably what you want between transferring between one airline and another, one aircraft and another, to make sure both you and your wheelchair make it. In my experience, 90 minutes is probably safe. Any less than that and your wheelchair might not make it. Some airlines require what's called a MEDIF, which is a medical fitness to fly form. Now, Emirates, I know, is one of these. And again, this is where a travel agent might come in handy. They will know if the airline requires this form and whether you need to fill it in. Travel agents generally, they will know the requirements of each airline. As I say, I know that Emirates is one airline that does require this MEDIF. And it's very simple, but it does need to be signed off by your GP, so it's quite important to plan ahead and make sure that you know whether or not you require a medical certificate to fly. So no matter what it says on any website, accessible means different things to different people. Only you know what your needs are. So when you're booking a hotel room, it doesn't matter what it says on the website, ask detailed questions about the height of the bed, about circulation space, about how the bathroom's fitted out. Ask them if they'll send you a photograph. Now, I've had this experience myself. I booked 2 hotels in England, which touted themselves as accessible. And when I said, so how's the is there a roll-in shower? How's the bathroom? And both hotels told me, oh, we have a bath. And I'm like, so I'm in a wheelchair, how do I get into a bath? Well, can't your carer help you get in the bath? No. Well, perhaps we can give you a room with a regular shower and you can take your wheelchair in the shower. And I was like, well, no, I've got a power wheelchair. How's that going to work? So these were so-called accessible rooms. So don't just go by what it says on the website. Call directly, ask the concierge, if possible, ask for photographs so that you know whether you can transfer safely to and from shower chairs, to and from the toilet, if there's enough circulation space, if there's a room under the bed, if you've got a portable hoist, all these things, only you will know what you need. So make sure your needs will be met. So particularly on long-haul flights, beware of pressure sores. And this is where I said, decide whether you want a lot of short flights and transfers or one long flight. If you are going to go on one long flight, just beware that it is a long time to be sitting down. And if possible, if you do use an air cushion, take it with you, and you can use it. You can ask the airline as well for extra blankets and cushions to sit on for your arms if you're completely immobile and you do need to kind of rest your arms on cushions and blankets, just ask for cushions and blankets. If you are going to go on an aircraft with your own pressurized cushion, remember to deflate it slightly because the pressurized cabin, the air will expand and your cushion might explode, and that's not going to be good for you in the long term. We all know how small aircraft toilets are. Try to avoid using them as much as possible. It's a hassle. So my suggestion is, without risking dehydration, monitor your fluid intake beforehand and during the flight. If you're using a catheter bag, I personally would not bother going to the toilet. I would actually just use a bottle of urinal. And although it might seem a little bit kind of you might be a bit embarrassed about using a urinal on a plane. It's actually you can do it quite discreetly. And I've been on a lot of long-haul flights where my carer I've just had to pull the hose out quite discreetly, empty my bag. Nobody's any the wiser. If they see, who cares? It's actually a lot less hassle than trying to use that tiny little toilet. I would definitely suggest using a bottle on the plane, long-haul flights. Really well worth it. Make sure your travel insurance covers you. It's very easy to get online travel insurance. Read the fine print if necessary. Talk to the insurer and make sure that you're covered for whatever your condition is, because it is a pre-existing condition and it may not be covered. And you may need a higher level of cover than that's kind of, rather than getting something that's cheap, rather go for something that will actually cover you. Make sure you read the fine print. I would strongly advise actually talking to the insurer about your condition. Very simple, especially if you've got a power wheelchair, get it checked out before you go. It's also a good idea to find out if there's a local service agent who's got spare parts and a supplier who can repair or replace bits and pieces, whether you've got a manual wheelchair or a power wheelchair. That's how we get about. If you're overseas and your wheelchair fails on you, you're really stuck. So make sure you take all precautions and really, if possible, try and get the names and addresses of local suppliers who can fix your wheelchair if it breaks down or has spare parts. Medication. We always have medication to a greater or lesser extent. I would say it's a really good idea to take twice the medication you need and pack it in separate bags in case one bag goes missing. And the other thing to be aware of is that some of the medications you take may be controlled substances in other countries. It's probably a good idea to find out, and I think you can find out on Smart Traveller, the government website, whether your medication is maybe a controlled substance in your destination country. It's also a good idea to take a letter from your GP if you've got those kinds of substances to say why you need them. And also remember to take, if possible, a spare prescription, and also get from your GP the generic names of your meds rather than the brand names, so that when you go to a different country and they're called something different, you still know what you need. This is important. People with a spinal cord injury, we often have to ask for help. And I think you'll find, and I've heard lots and lots of stories of complete strangers just really going out of their way to help. You have to be prepared for the unexpected, but also be very open to the offer of help, because there are many people out there who will help, and you'll be shocked and surprised by how many people, how kind people are, how kind strangers are. And I've heard countless stories, and I've experienced myself how much people will go out of their way to help you without even asking. But you have to be open to it. It might be kind of a first world kind of attitude, but frankly, in developing countries, the infrastructure is not there, but there is not a problem that can't be solved by throwing a little bit of money at it. If the hill's too steep for your wheelchair, hire a taxi or just hire somebody to push you. I know when I was in India, there was no accessible van, so I had a regular high-ace van, and every time I wanted to get my power chair in or out of the chair, in or out of the high-ace van, I would literally ask a couple of passers-by, I would pay them $1 each, they would lift my power chair into the van and out. They were extremely happy because they got 50 rupees for 1 minute's work, and I was pretty happy because for me it was $1. So it's a win-win situation. If there is a problem in a developing country, don't be afraid to shell out what to us is a very small amount, and what to them is actually quite a significant amount of money to get over the problem. As a disabled traveller, you are different from every other traveller that people will meet. Your story is a lot more interesting than the average traveller's story. Share your story. It'll open doors to new experiences and new friendships. Don't be afraid to talk about what's happened to you and why you're in a wheelchair and the difficulties you face, because people really are interested, and you are. I mean, capitalise on the difference between you and every other tourist. It will open doors. And has done for me many times. And I think the last tip is really, don't ever feel limited by your disability, no matter how severe or minor it is. Some of you will have heard of Anthony Bartle from Melbourne, who has done some amazing things, very, very high-level quad. Ventilated. He made a documentary recently about his safari trip to Africa. It took him 7 or 8 years to plan it, but he went on safari in Africa. If he can do that, any of you can do anything similar. There's very little these days that you can't do with some planning, and if you really want to do it. Don't get hung up on your limitations and your own kind of lack of accessibility. Travel for the reasons everybody travels. To have new experiences, to see new places, to meet new people, to try new food. We can do whatever anyone else can do these days. Finally, there are a couple of free resources that I've produced. One of them is a 98-page list of online resources which covers dozens of countries and dozens of travel blogs of disabled travellers out there just travelling and following their dreams. They're inspiring stories, and this is something that I'm going to be updating every 6 months. So it's going to get bigger and bigger. For the next edition, I've already got on board a number of national tourism bodies, so they're going to be sponsoring me for the next edition. So this information is only going to get richer and richer, and it'll stay current because I'm updating it every 6 months. It's free. Download it, have a read, be inspired, and there's a lot of really, really good information on dozens of countries. And finally, my first projects I released for Learning Planet, if you're going to Melbourne, download this free PDF, which is Accessible Melbourne. It's full of accessibility information for Melbourne, places to stay, places to see, places to eat. There's a whole chapter on sports and recreation. Again, free download. If you're going to Melbourne, I strongly advise you to download a copy. So that's my top tips. Do I have any questions? My next project is I'm going to be producing Access Rio guide for the Olympics, which I'm delivering, I think, 2,500 copies for the Paralympic athletes, but it will be a free ebook for the public.
Okay, just do you have an opinion on some of these international disabled travel agencies? Do you think they're very worthwhile?
I think it depends on what kind of trip you want to do and how confident you are as a traveller. I personally I was always a very independent traveller before I became a wheelchair user, and that's the way I would prefer to do it now. But my needs are not necessarily that high. I would always, as I said, I would always actually book my flights through a travel agent, but it really depends on what kind of a holiday you're looking for. And the higher your needs, the more I would say it's worth looking into booking your entire trip through a travel agent such as
a special travel
needs travel agent.
Yes.
And there are plenty around.
Yep.
In my 98-page resources book, there is a whole section of country-by-country listings of accessible travel agents.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just want to warn people what happened to me at an airport. I was in a wheelchair with the staff wheeling me through customs, and the person behind me stole something that was going through, and I didn't realise it till after, and they flew away. It was on camera, and I lost everything. So watch how much you have, and if you have an assistant, make sure they count your bags.
Thank you.
To add to the question about specialist services, a lot of them do safe things and also expensive. So they will keep their own information about accessible hotels, but they'll be 5-star or 4-star. When I travelled, I wanted to do 3-star and did a lot of independent research and found them. The tours that they tell you about are very safe, and I think people want to be a bit more adventurous for themselves when they travel, and no one should be scared of doing that rather than going through the specialist services.
Just interested in how you would go about hiring equipment. So let's say you need a toilet, a shower commode, something like that. I remember I went to the US, and in some states, absolutely no problem, delivered to your room. In another state, Illinois, absolutely impossible.
It is really, I mean, obviously if you need things like over toilet seats, shower chairs, I would say, yeah, there are equipment suppliers. Definitely something you need to sort out before you go. Hotels, I would generally choose hotels where I wouldn't have to take my own. There is one product available on the market which does fit into a suitcase by Go Mobility in the States, and it's basically a shower chair commode that you can just literally fit into a suitcase and you can carry with you. So I think it's called Go Mobility, and they're based in the States, and I think it's the only portable shower chair commode on the market. And I think as a wheelchair user, it's counted as mobility equipment, so it doesn't count as part of your luggage allowance, I think, which is handy.
I just wondered wondered if you had any advice for people that need to take a carer with them, how to go about sourcing someone and paying them.
All my trips I've travelled with a carer. I've always travelled with a carer that I know and I've worked with before, people I know well, and that I would strongly advise, if possible, taking somebody with you that you know and you've worked with, rather than hiring in country. However, it's much. If you're funding your own carer, it's obviously a lot cheaper to source somebody in country. I would absolutely, if you have a spinal cord injury, I would absolutely make sure that any carer you hire has experience with spinal cord injuries before even considering hiring them. It is quite a specialised caring, a specialised kind of care needs. So yeah, it's much cheaper to hire if you're funding your own care. I'm very lucky and being compensated by the Victorian Traffic Accident Commission, so I am actually, they fund my carer to come with me, and that's far preferable to travel with someone you know and who knows your routine. If not, definitely you need somebody who's got demonstrable experience with the spinal cord injury.
Is there an easy electric scooter that one could take?
Is there
an easy electric scooter, a travel scooter?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. Peter may know. Sorry.
Does Lonely Planet have Amsterdam to Budapest booklet for the trip? A Lonely Planet book on Amsterdam to Budapest?
Does Lonely Planet do a book on
Amsterdam to Budapest?
No. But I do know in my travel resources there are local people in Amsterdam. I know Accessible Netherlands Travel. Veronique, there's a girl called Veronique who's very knowledgeable in Amsterdam. It's pretty well set up in Amsterdam, and her website and her travel agency within the Netherlands is very highly regarded.
G'day. My wife and I have travelled for 9 months. In that period, we had to bring all our continence equipment with us, which was a bit of a nightmare. Have you ever had to source your continence equipment whilst you were overseas?
Thankfully, no. I always make sure I take a lot more than I need. Like, as with medications, I probably take twice the amount.
Yeah.
Just because, particularly in developing countries, you simply won't find it. So I take twice the amount, and again, I split my continence equipment into different bags in case one bag goes missing. So it's always advisable just to take far more than you need.
Have you ever had issues going through customs with all your medications and continence?
No.
I'd just like to add one more thing. I've found recently, if anyone's heard of Airbnb, that it's quite handy. Depending on your mobility, you can find apartments or just rooms that can be quite accessible, and the people that are renting the places are always very helpful. So I've had them measure doorways, confirm that there's no stairs, and take extra photos of the bathroom, things like that, and that really helps.
And there's a brand new venture just launched in the UK called Achievable, ACCOMABLE, by a friend of mine, Martin Sibley, and his partner Srin, which is basically they're trying to set up as an Airbnb for accessible accommodation.
Okay, great.
That's worth looking into. They just set up business probably 6 months ago, so they're just building up their stock of rooms now.
Okay, well, I think we'll take. Do you mind taking one more question? I'll go and ask.
Do you have a few favourite places you think are good to go to?
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
A few favourite places to visit.
In terms of most accessible or favourite places to visit, I would say probably the most accessible city I've ever been to, and it would be very difficult to imagine a city more accessible, would be Singapore. Singapore it's so well set up in every respect, and really easy to get around, and plenty to see and do, and the food is probably the best in the world.
If we can take a vote on favourite places to go, Barcelona.
Barcelona, I've also been to, also very, very accessible city. And again, plenty to see and do. And in Barcelona, you end up jumping the queues to get into sites and often get in free as well.
Okay. This mic. We've got this one. Here we go. So we're turned on now. So what I am, my name's Peter. I own a company called Clubmates Travel. So like Martin said, travel agents aren't for everybody. Some people, yes, you need them. Some people, no, book it yourself. It's up to you. What I've got here, I've actually got behind Martin here, I've got John, who actually provides what they call an eagle lifter. Everyone says, how do I get on an aircraft? How do I get off an aircraft? These are actually being sold to either the airlines or the airport authorities all over the world. The more people in a wheelchair ask for them, the more they're going to be sold. The easier it is to get on and off the aircraft. So Martin's very kindly offered to donate his services to, we're going to sling him and move him and things like that. So while I'm talking, John and Martin are going to weave their magic. So what can a travel agent do that you can't? Number one, you need to have the right travel agent. If you go to the sausage factories, it's not going to work for you. It doesn't matter how you do it. They won't understand the travel insurance. Like Martin said, you're better off, even with a company like mine, if you want to double check, go and contact the travel insurance company. We are just a broker for the travel insurance. That's how it works. We can't make decisions for the travel insurance company. It's not us. With the other parts of the travel, so obviously when we go to booking in the system, we actually book within the airline system. So whether it be Virgin, Qantas, Singapore, Emirates, Etihad, the GDS that we use, which is Amadeus, books in, is the largest GDS, global distribution system in the world. So when we book in there, we make all our notes in there. We know the airline can see the notes. So therefore, we can put in the heights of the chairs, weight of the user, do we need an eagle, can they transfer themselves? So we put in all the notes so the airline sees it live. So when we go to book accommodation, we actually go through, everyone's got a phone, iPhones are fantastic for it. I actually FaceTime a lot of people and go and show me the bathroom. Everyone goes, oh, the bathroom wasn't accessible. Well, define accessible. What's accessible? So everyone has a different level of accessibility. I had a lady come up to me the other day, actually yesterday, and she said, oh, I need accessible bathrooms. And I said, oh, you know, what level of disability? She can actually get up and walk a little bit. So what's the accessibility? There's no issue, there's no problem with her travelling. So she can literally go anywhere she wants in the world. It's quite simple. When you've got someone in a big, heavy motorised chair that can't ambulate at all, can't move their arms and legs, that's a different level of accessibility required. So when you go to a travel agent, number one, you need to know, what does the travel agent do? It's no use having one of the big sausage factories unless you know that particular person knows about accessible travel. And there's some that do, and some say they do, and some they don't. So you need to work out who it is. Build a relationship with your travel agent if you're going to do that as well. So what John's done here is, he's actually just put a sling on Martin. This thing here, the eagle lifter opens right up. It'll lift up higher as well. So what we need to do is we need to get Martin up high enough, and this is going to walk up the aisle of the plane. So bearing in mind, this is a pretty groovy piece of equipment. And that's a great screen because it lasted that hit. Are there any websites and accurate information about accessible travel? The overall thing is, you've got to do your own homework. So number one, you either pay a travel agent to do it or you do it yourself. If you're good on Google, you can spend a lot of time doing it. There's certain hotel chains that are better than others, but you really need to do your own homework as well. Every time we go and book accommodation. Australia's quite easy for us. Internationally, because everyone wants a different international destination, we look at where we're going to go, how we're going to do it, what level of accessibility do we need. If we're in, like Martin said, we're in the middle of London, are there cobblestone streets either side of that hotel? Can we get the wheelchairs in and out and about? So there's things you need to consider when you're looking for accessible accommodation. Again, you need to be able to get to restaurants, clubs, pubs, activities. What are you going to do up there? The airlines. So now that we've got Martin up in the sling, if you ask him, I'm sure he'll say this is quite comfortable. It's not an uncomfortable stance to be in. He spins around. So now we're nearly ready to walk him up the aisle of the aircraft. So you'll see at the back here, John's got this foot here out wide, so the thing's not going to tip over. He's lowering Martin down because we don't want it sitting up high while we're going up and down the aircraft. We don't need it up high. What's that? The ground, there's a lifter. So depending on what airline you're travelling, I would never suggest, because you'll run into trouble, depending on, again, your accessibility and your ability to get on and off the aircraft, I wouldn't be using budget airlines. Budget airlines, they'll physically lift you and move you, but there's lifters that will go from the ground up to the aircraft. But then you still have a step a lot of the time to get into the aircraft. The chair will go back down into the hold. Again, the chair needs to be a specific size. The aircraft, unless you want them to pull it apart. So who wants their chair pulled apart? Not that many people, because when they pull these apart, they don't necessarily put them back together. They lose screws on them, don't they, Martin? So I would always look for what they call a full service airline. Yes, it costs you more money, but the professionalism is much, much better. So now Martin's up there. You'll see that this arm has been contracted back in. This is up at a reasonable height. We can wheel him quite safely up the aircraft. This rear wheel here, they actually bring it in. So now it's the width of an aisle. So we can roll Martin comfortably up the aisle of the aircraft. If the nose of the aircraft is looking this way, Martin needs to sit on that side of the aircraft. So the travel agent needs to know. So the travel agent needs to know which side of the aircraft he's got to sit on. All right, so there's a few little tricks around there. Once he's onto the seat, then we literally, you're going to put him back in this, John?
Yeah. I can't simulate an aircraft seat. Oh, actually, yeah. If you actually
want me to, can I? Which way do you want it?
Just come around this way.
So I'll let John play with that. So support staff on the aircraft. With having the Eagle lifter, you actually don't need one of your support staff to move on and off the aircraft. Not all the airlines, no. There's a variance between airlines and the airports. So you have to do your research again.
So Peter, what we'll do is we'll simulate if this is an aircraft seat now.
Yep. So we're going to have this as the aircraft seat. I'll just give you a right now.
Yep.
So now all we do is we would lift Martin right up so he gets over the arm of the seat in the aircraft. He'll come across and we can gently lower him back down to the seat. Your support staff, do you want them in Australia? Do you want to take them overseas? If you take them overseas, you've got to pay for it. That's the way it is. They don't do it for free generally. If they're doing it for free, they may not be the best selection at times because you want someone who's professional, who's going to look after you with absolute professionalism. If you go to a third world country, you go, I want support staff in that country. Are they trained? Can they actually do that level of support that you require? If you bring them from Australia, we know that the level of quality is there as well. Who pays for all the support staff? The traveller does. So that's accommodation, meals, flights, everything on top of it. There's no cheap way to get around it. Unless you've got a partner who's really good, who is happy to work with you. Yep, no worries. Now it's happy days, we can go.
So what we've done, Peter, is we've basically opened up so we can go over
Yep.
economy,
So now,
economy, business.
so this Eagle lifter will cover you in economy, business, premium economy. So now we lift Martin up. Once Martin's up, he'll just slide over the airline seat. The airline seat actually gets tilted back. As we're lowering him, we're going to grab hold of the back of the sling, pull him back so his bum goes right into the edge of the seat, so it's as comfortable as possible. Obviously, like Martin said, when he's in flight, you don't particularly want to have to get up and move across to the bathroom to go to the toilet. You're much better off having another system. There's different ways around using that as well.
I'll just close out. I'll bring it in so we can...
So now it's a nice comfortable seat down for Martin. These eagle lifters, Qantas have one in pretty much every airport in Australia. They're very, very widely used in Australia. Going from here to the UK, they're pretty much in every airport that we're going to jump across. You have to pre-book it though, so they won't just rock up with this. And they won't, if the airline owns this, the airport authority won't use it and vice versa. So you've got to have the right systems in place. You need to know what you're booking when you're booking it. Otherwise, you'll run into a trap. Like Martin said, you need to have plenty of time in advance if you're going to book something. So our time's nearly up. But any quick questions?
I'm sorry if I missed something you said earlier, Peter, but which airlines have the Eagle Lift now?
It's not so much the airlines, it's the airport.
Okay.
In Australia, it's Qantas that have it here.
Mm-hmm.
Virgin have a selection of them here as well. When we go overseas, because of the way the systems are set up, is more the airline authorities that run these, not the airlines. Dubai, for instance, they have a few of these running around. It depends, and you just ring up and go, "G'day, I'm coming in on Virgin, Qantas, Etihad," and they'll organise it around that. But it is the airline you contact to book the Eagle.
Okay. So the more we ask, the more that might pop up.
You have to, if you don't ask for these things, and the biggest thing is, literally, if you don't travel, things won't improve. So take it as it's your mission to go out there and travel.
Are there any final questions?
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much for listening, and have a great conference.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Martin, for your presentation today. Thank you.